Welcome to Oh Brother, a podcast where we try to figure it all out with your hosts, Brandon and Collin. On this week's show, a hodgepodge of things. My spirit animal.
Well, it'll only get more tepid because you're in a basement currently. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's another live in-person episode of What's Up? How are you today?
Indeed, it is tepid coffee in hand, and we've upgraded our recording setup today.
We have.
This was, and we have a peek behind the curtain here. Old card table from
The 70s.
70s.
Now, listeners, here's something you may not know. This is the most makeshift podcast of all time. Now, here's the setup, right? Card table from the 70s, possibly 80s. Random, really old dining room chairs from my grandma. And the problem is the mobile studio recording stands are 5 inches tall.
Very diminutive. They're very mobile. So mobile that why even have these
they're
stands?
pocket size.
These are pocket stands. They're just ridiculous.
Now, the problem you might see here is that we are much taller than this. So we have grabbed some children's encyclopedias.
Some childcraft.
That's
encyclopedias.
Right. That's right. This is the return of Encyclopedia Corner with the Oh Brother podcast.
They supported our upbringing and curiosity. Now they support mics.
Now supporting microphones.
Yes.
Right. So yes, apparently, right. I did not know. I just sort of took it. This is one of those things that you have around the house. Again, listeners, this is our father's basement, right? So that's why the hodgepodge of things here. But like, this is a book set, right? Apparently, for a long time, right? These must have been Mom's.
I would say
as a child,
yes,
because the date on these definitely say 1964.
64.
Yeah. So these, I don't know how popular these were, right? I don't know. Reddit seems to just be saying like, oh yeah, that is a thing. Oh my gosh. So yeah, these are apparently, right, the originally created in 1934 by the publishers of World Book, right?
Oh, are these a slightly more like children version, I guess?
I think so. Well, they're at least published by the same company, right? The How and Why Library, right? It's a sort of encyclopedia for children with just to learn about all kinds of different stuff, right? Short stories, poems, fairy tales, nursery rhymes.
Trapping animals at sea.
Yeah, and a lot of other weird stuff. Chopsticks,
animal cages.
Usage.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'm in the How and Why.
That's what they're all called.
This one is. Sorry, this was in What People Do.
There we go.
Sorry.
The top one
Book
here.
10.
Holidays and customs. That's right.
Ooh.
Right.
My other, okay, again, this could be a whole episode where we just read out of 1964 childcraft books. It's not. We'll try not to, but I do have to say in the What People Do one.
Oh boy, here we go.
On page 104, it's just labeled "Seeing Around Corners."
Seeing around corners. That is a man with a periscope.
That is something people do. That's I suppose. True. I was expecting more like jobs.
I mean, that's only page 104, so you might have to spycraft. I was imagining looking at clues.
It was the 60s. Gosh. It was the 60s.
That's true. So this is like spy versus spy.
This is checking forgeries on checks.
Catch me if you can stuff, right?
Ropes at Seaport.
People do tie ropes at seaports. That is true, yes.
This is... See, meter detectives. We don't have it. That's not a job that I knew about.
Your dad used a meter today to detect electric current. So
to make sure we weren't going to electrocute ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Worse than we would. Yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen. All right. We'll come back to childcraft at a later date. Right now, I need to tell you about the most Midwest thing I've experienced in a while today, right?
Oh.
So I get here. I come to the house. outside of my father's house, there are 2 men wearing vests only.
looking. There were
okay, not
pants.
only, but like no jacket, just a vest.
No.
Wearing a vest, investigating a circuit breaker, and talking about generators. I can't. I need.
And here's the context. Massive winter storm coming in. Feet of snow possible. Like all week I've seen from my forecast, it's been like, do you want 21 inches of snow? Maybe 18. How about 20? Maybe 19. How about 21? Now we're in like the 15 inches of snow plus ice. It's a very reasonable thing to do.
Yes. So they were talking about generator usage, right? How to start said generator, use generator, blah, blah. And my father does possess the forbidden extension cord, right? Internet, it's real. I have seen it. It has bitten me, right? A long time ago. My father does have the forbidden extension cord, the double male pronged.
Yes.
Yes. It's a doozy. It's to plug your generator into the main box of your house, right?
And this is a lot of people think you just have to plug directly, like, oh, I want to run my computer, I want to run a fan, I plug it into the generator. No. Here's what you actually do is you shut off the main coming into your home so that you don't blow anything up whenever this is going on, and you don't send electricity back out into the system for line crews that are taking care of
it. Protect the power line workers, people. Don't fry the power line workers.
But then you plug your generator directly into an outlet that actually you have to do some little checking on where it's supposed to be.
Not just any outlet.
It has to be aligned with what you're actually wanting to run and on every other one so you don't overload this. Like, it's not as simple.
It's really some Apollo 13 checklist stuff right here, right?
Nothing.
You remember in Apollo 13 when they're trying to power up the LEM and they only have a certain amount of amps to work with to run the operating system? And if they power things up in a certain way, it will work. But if you power it up in a non-certain way, it like shuts everything down. That is what's happening here.
Yeah. Well, and it really helps you define priorities for what do I need. I'm like, okay, I have no power and it's a massive winter storm.
Heater. Heater is the answer.
So find heat.
And a light.
A light is what you'll do.
That's what you get.
And that's all. And that's fine. But you do have to, define that.
Yes, that's true.
And run that. So I just find... just was like, okay,
yes, but my father was testing the forbidden extension cord with an amp meter to make sure that current was running through the cord, right? Checking amperage and voltage of electricity being sent from the generator. I was standing by with the phone ready to call 911 in case anything happens.
Yeah. And we should say the reason it is forbidden is because you're plugging the male into the converter on the generator.
Yeah.
And then there's a hot end. It is immediately hot with electricity added.
You know how I know this, listeners? Once upon a time, I got by this extension cord. I just barely picked up the wrong end. And I guess my finger brushed the other male end. And it hit me through that. That's a good.
Yeah. So it is definitely a lot of order of operations of when to plug in what and how to also shut down and do that safely too.
That's true.
So we were rehearsing and doing some dry runs with that. And I think that's fine. I think that's normal. It's what people.
I mean, that's true. I'm just saying this is an incredibly Midwest experience.
Yes.
So for all of our international listeners that are wondering, right? All of our German friends that are like, "Do Americans really do?" Yes.
Yes,
this really happened today. I witnessed this.
At least we had the amp meter, right? We weren't just trying to guess or touch it real quick.
That's true. There was no other weird implements involved. There was actual electronic equipment being used for functioning purposes. So that's a positive, right? That's a good.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just very funny. I was just like, wow, what is happening?
Yeah, so there you go. Meter detective. It's what people do.
It is what people do.
And thank you, Childcraft, for helping us see
Remember, the people detect things with meters. That's
My goodness. Just looking more at these things.
You know, there's still some on the shelf back there. If you want to go grab the ones that are not supporting your microphone stand, you can investigate.
I'm trying to investigate this. It's the what people do, make and do, how things work, how we get things, how things change.
Oh, well, I have the probably the most used one that I can remember, the Poems and Rhymes book. I also have Stories and Fables, World and Space, Life Around Us, and Holidays and Customs. Right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4 more over there when I think an index book. So, yeah, there we go.
Did you spend a lot of time in these?
I remember the Fables one a lot.
Yeah.
The one I can't. Hold on. Grab it out of the bottom there.
Oh man, that is used.
Yeah, the poem. That's the Poems one, right? But that's the one I remember.
These were moms.
I knew that. I thought they were here. But yeah, I remember the Poems and Rhymes one the most. I think. Right. We have such. There's some paper ASMR for you.
Oh yeah. Folio.
There you go. Yeah, like Mother Goose, poems for the outdoors, poems about plants and animals, rhymes of life and home, poems of play and make believe. Right? I don't remember that, but I remember like the Mother Goose one. This illustration is very telling right here. Yeah, like right. Bye Bye Bunting. The classic Rockabye Baby. This is the way the ladies ride. I don't remember that one.
Super well known, obviously.
Peas porridge hot. Peas porridge cold. Peas porridge in the pot. 9 days old.
It's 9 days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the Mary Mary Quite Contrary, Jack and Jill. These pictures are everything right now. Also, like
they're fantastic. I
should take some pictures of some of these. But this is our
the show art.
Our show art this week. Yes, Willy Winky. We'll find a good one after. I don't know. But yeah, this is what I remember the most of. Did you read these a lot, or are they just like a thing that existed on the shelf?
They were one of the things that just existed on the shelf, and I didn't read them a lot. I think I'd pull them down every now and then, but for no particular purpose and for no ends really, just to see as a novelty. But yeah, as somebody who is now very into encyclopedias later in life.
It's true. Encyclopedia enthusiast, may say.
It is. That's why I like when I go to work at our public library, the wall behind me has their encyclopedias. It has their 2010 Encyclopedia Britannica, and it has their 2018 World Book. That's where you go work, and you can turn around and reference something quickly. I've actually pulled out.
You pulled out the World Book?
Yes. Well, I pulled out Encyclopedia Britannica. I was working on actually a presentation, and okay. I was trying to work. I was trying to work on a presentation, and I was on productivity. And so what I did was, as I just went to the index, flipped to productivity, and then just started going to everywhere what that word was in Encyclopedia set. Look. The internet's great, but this is a fantastic way to find information because you have to. You just pass things along your way, and you're like, whoa, what was that? Right? And you go back 2 pages, and you're like, there. Like anyway, it was wonderful, and I had a good time. So I've actually been using them more frequently than I have in the past, and it's been great.
I pulled out. What is this? Stories and Fables.
Okay.
Because this is the other one I remember reading a lot. What? This is the Dr. Doolittle's push me pull you thing about the animal that has heads at both ends.
What?
Have you never read that?
No.
That's the show note right there. That one.
Oh my gosh. You're right. I am taking that picture right now. I don't understand. What is this about?
It's the push me pull you. It goes in both directions. Haha, right?
Oh, that's the name of the animal.
Yeah.
Oh. Lord save us, cried the duck. How does it make up its mind?
That really is the crux of the whole story right there. That's everything you need to know.
A little bit of existential crisis
Yeah.
here.
Two heads. It's like, imagine a horse, or this is like an antelope thing.
It's like an ibex or whatever here.
Or a kudu. But it's like it's
more
like
obscure African animal.
Yeah, that's right. So you pull out, it's just like the two front halves stuck together, right? So it's like the worst centaur ever. I also remember this story, this ice story. I don't remember why, but this picture looks familiar. This is a portents, hopefully not portents for Collin's future. The little red hen, of course. Yes. So yeah, there we go. This is the one that I remember the most. I don't remember looking at a lot of the other ones. The shoemaker and the elves, right? All this stuff. But these are the ones that I remember the most. Rapunzel. I think I read a lot of these. Oh, the Bremen Town Musicians. Classic. I like this one too. This is a good one. Yes. Sorry, German friends, if I mispronounce that name. As we know, my German pronunciation, not great. Right? So yeah, here you go.
Okay.
Blam.
That'll be a follow-up episode of just reading out of old encyclopedias.
That's true. Or specifically these encyclopedias.
These encyclopedias. Yes. That may be a bit
Although
more.
we have some at home. We have encyclopedia set from the 70s. There was Susan's when she was little.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. They're in there. They're one of our bookshelves.
Nice. This is what I'm talking about. It's needed.
Yeah. It's hard for me to imagine a time where somebody would show up at your house and they'd be like, sir or madam, I would like to sell you this thing. And then you gave them money. And then they actually sent you a thing, right? That's
Yeah. That is weird.
The internet has ruined me. Right? This is just...
Yeah.
This was a thing that people did,
yeah,
right? They just came up like, yes, would you like this vacuum? Just show up at your house one day with a vacuum cleaner. Like,
There it is.
okay, yes, I will buy this vacuum cleaner. Like, what is
how and it is interesting that how now door-to-door salesmen have such a bad reputation, but for a while, like it was I feel like more respected or reputable, more well received, because it was the only way you could acquire certain sale of items. And did it always have such a weird, like,
I don't know if like, yeah, I don't really know when this changed, right? I don't know when was the pivot point of like, oh yeah, people coming to my house to sell me things is normal versus why are you coming to my house?
Right.
Like, I don't know when that happened. Right? I don't know. When did Arthur Miller write Death of a Salesman? When did that happen? When did the door-to-door salesman actually go away?
I'd look it up in the encyclopedia set, but I'm using it as a...
Oh, it's true. It's probably not in the child book.
Probably not in the child
I think Arthur Miller's in there.
Yeah, and only 76% liked the book. 1949.
Oh, I think it was probably after that then.
Yeah, I think that...
Only 76%. Well, it's a pretty heavy book.
It's
a pretty tough one.
Gets a 3.6 out of 5.
It's a play.
Yeah.
Only a 3.6 out of 5?
On Goodreads. I don't know, people.
Guys, why are you hating on Arthur Miller? What the heck?
Yeah, what mental illness is in Death of a Salesman?
What did they... well, there's a lot going on in that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that you know what? That answer is actually just blank on Google. I just realized.
Yeah. What about... What? People only gave the Crucible 3.6. They didn't get the Crucible. They didn't understand what was happening.
Oh, they did it wrong. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They didn't get the metaphor. The Crucible is an extended metaphor for McCarthyism. There you go. Just in case you didn't know that, listeners. Spoilers for the Crucible.
How about that?
Yeah. It's a commentary on McCarthyism, but it's set during the Salem witch trials. It's a book about a literal witch hunt at a time when the government was going on witch hunts.
Say what?
Subtlety. Right, there you go. But
What? That's crazy.
I feel like that's sad. I like Arthur Miller.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not happy. You're not like, ooh. Let me read a fun, uplifting story.
Dive
about
into
the
this.
Crucible.
The sun is out. I'm feeling good today. Let me go lift my spirits.
Yeah.
Further with the Crucible.
By reading Death of a Salesman.
Or salesman. Yeah. Nope. It's definitely an event that you prepare
That's
for.
true.
You don't just stumble into that.
Short though. It's a play.
It's
so
helpful.
It's really short. You can read it in.
And honestly, that's probably why people don't rate it as highly, because it is a play, and those read kind of those are different.
They're a challenge, but
Challenges
I
to
think
read
reading
through.
plays is good. I don't do it enough.
Well, that's what I'm
right?
saying.
But
I think it is a type of reading that not very many people do.
that's fair. I would say that's fair.
I mean, how many people read Shakespeare and understand the play format in most cases?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't find it. This is a hard question for me because I don't find it particularly difficult to understand that.
Yeah.
So people read shit. People don't understand Shakespeare. Actually, no. Hold on. Shakespeare gets a bad rap because people think. I read this online one time and it resonated with me greatly. Right? It's people think that Shakespeare is pretentious, but it's fans of Shakespeare that are pretentious. Right? It's like college English professors that are pretentious, not actually Shakespeare, because the plays are really bawdy and really rowdy and there's lots of horribly dirty jokes in there.
Well, they were for the people, right? They were for mass audiences and presented in that way instead of a cloister behind things. It was a plays for and of the people.
Yeah, and so there are some things that are lost in translation, like the words aren't pronounced the same way, so some of the rhyme is gone. You have to kind of go around, but it's funny. Romeo and Juliet is hilarious.
Yeah.
Right? Just read any line of Mercutio. You're in there. Boom. This is the best.
I think what's hard about reading a play is that you don't get the voiceover guidance of what...
you have the chorus sometimes.
Sometimes, but in a lot of plays, you don't get the... And deep in their thoughts, they were thinking.
Oh,
this,
that's true.
This. You don't get that kind of guiding principle of behind the scenes fact. A lot of it is just lines or line reading.
You do have to infer a lot.
Yes,
right.
I think that's what makes it challenging, is to read a play and go, oh, I understand. And that's why actors in theater have to understand the motivations of the people that they're playing. If you're just reading this for kicks and grins on a Sunday,
that's true.
It does take a little bit more of getting into it.
That's true, but some of them, it depends on what you read, right? Reading a really, really long play, like Macbeth, right? Heavy, right? Sorry, the Scottish play.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the one, right? Is that the one? I get that in Hamlet confused. I can't remember which one is the one you're not allowed to say. Anyway, if you read Hamlet, right, it's a lot longer and there's a lot more plot going on there.
Yes.
Right? If you read The Glass Menagerie, it's very succinct, right? It's more of a smaller, shorter play situation, right? If you're going to go watch A Glass Menagerie, take an hour and a half, right? Not a big deal. But it's a very good... It's one of my other favorite plays, right? You can just read that one. It's a good one, and it's very distilled down. And so I think they do have a bad reputation of being unapproachable, right? Because let's be fair, people of the theater sometimes, again, the pretentiousness comes from them. If you go to just a theater, just watch a thing, there will be normal people there, and then you can visibly see the theater people.
Usually wearing ascots.
Yes, that is true. Ascots or big if it's a lady a big coat, right? Or they look like a crazy person from the 30s, a huge fur, but it's not real fur anymore, but that kind of jacket, right? They're there on a Thursday evening in a ball gown, and you're what Bro, what are you doing?
Yes, it is an event.
Yeah, but this is just like the local production of Pirates of Penzance, right? Calm down. Like, it's not a big...
Yeah. Entertained.
So I think that, yeah, they are... I can see how it is like... they're hard to read because people don't know how to read the... Like, it's all dialogue too.
Yes.
Right? It's a lot of dialogue.
Again, there's no... And they walks down the aisle and blah, 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 blah. And the wind
There's a chorus.
Unless, of course. But
right. The Greeks had the chorus. They invented the chorus. Well, I don't know if they invented it, but they popularized the use of the chorus for us.
Way to hedge your bets on that.
Right. Well, I don't know if they invented it.
No,
right?
I'm just saying, I realize that phrase they popularized can be used in that, like, well, they were at least the ones to use it the most.
They used it a lot. Modern parlance calls it the Greek chorus. So, like...
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a big thing. So, like, I'm hedging my bet on it's okay.
It's fine.
Like, it's fine.
It's
right.
fine.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So, speaking of
exactly
things that are hard to parse, we have decided, right, that we are going to do a second reading of the season here. We're going to do a winter reading list, the Oh Brother Winter Reader. Now, we have decided to help you overcome that pesky seasonal depression and terrible bleak winter atmosphere.
Yeah.
By reading Ernest Hemingway. Really going to lean into the seasonal.
Again, well-known mood picker-upper.
Yeah.
Helps with that.
And so full of happiness, this guy.
Also, very known for his joy.
Oh, wait.
This is what we call sarcasm.
Oh, man.
But we have a twist on our book selection as we were aided by...
That's true.
Something as far as every year things come into the public domain, and this is always a lot of fun. And so one of Hemingway's books and stories is entering, and it is the ineffably happy, again, wonderfully
so happy,
joyful here, a farewell to arms.
Farewell to arms.
A farewell to arms.
Right. So we're going to read it now. If you would like some backstory on some Hemingway, well, here's something that's interesting, right? Important Missouri connection. As you might know, Hemingway's first job, reporter for the Kansas City Star.
There we go.
Right? So there we go. That's an important Missouri connection for us. Hemingway did work at the Star for, 10 months or so before he became a ambulance driver in World War I.
Is that what he did?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
connection personally to the show.
Oh.
Okay. In a roundabout way, Johnny Morris bought one of the boats of Hemingway.
Did he?
He did.
Of course he did. Why am I surprised by this?
And it now sits in his Wonders of Wildlife Museum in the entrance.
Is it? That's Hemingway's boat?
That's Hemingway's boat, if you're interested.
Oh.
Yeah. And I had lunch on that boat whenever it was back in storage.
Collin used to eat lunch on the Hemingway boat. Look at that.
Back in their main distribution center is also what they call their fish farm, which is where all the fish that are in any store in the United States in Bass Pro come to be quarantined, treated, and taken care of before they're shipped out on live wells. Well, through one of the back doors, you get into their big storage area where they store all of the stuffs and mounts and stuff. And there was this boat, and we would just climb up in the back there and eat our sandwiches.
On Hemingway's boat. Is this from when he lived in Cuba?
Yes.
Is this? Oh, there we go. So after the Spanish Civil War, he moved to Cuba. In case you didn't know that. Yeah. So now here's the
anyway.
Yeah. So Hemingway's work, interestingly, right? It's interesting that you bring up the fact that some people don't like to read plays because there's just a lot of dialogue and there's no chorus to tell you the backstory. Hemingway, famous for being an extremely heavy user of dialogue.
Yes.
Right? And people love Hemingway. Maybe it's just the way it's presented in novel form, right? But people love some of Hemingway's work. Very divisive, right? He struggled with a lot of things during his life, which we'll get into later. But like a lot of his book, like he had books that were like lauded like universally, and he had other books that were like
completely panned.
Yeah,
right?
like what is that?
Yes, and not received at all.
Yeah, and so I think just he the weird part is right. So in doing research for this, I have been reading through "And the Sun Also Rises," right, a little bit.
Okay.
Right now, here's where Hemingway's writing becomes interesting. Right, a lot of Hemingway's stuff is like self-insert character. Right. So after recuperating right at home from some of his military service stuff, he went home. He became a war correspondent for the Toronto Star, and he lived in Paris. And he was surrounded by a lot of these expat authors, right? F. Scott Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, Ezra Pound, Ford Maddox Ford, all these people. All these people are in Paris at the time. And he's a newspaper writer, and he is working on writing nonfiction pieces, and he's around all these like writers and interesting people, and he's meeting all kinds of people. This is the plot of The Sun Also Rises. The main character here is in Paris, post-war. He's got a lot of author friends. He's,
look at that.
He's going around. He's going on these trips to Spain with them. Right. This is just Hemingway writing about himself, right? This is
well, and I know his writing in general does get panned, and it is hard for people. A lot of people actually don't like it because it is very understated. It is very brief, kind of to the point. It doesn't.
But the people that like him say, well, this is a thing from newspaper writing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
He was first and foremost a newspaper writer.
Newspaper, and he was on the beat, doing war correspondence and things,
interviews, stories. Like
you don't have exactly the fast hitting, but not like it's not just like punching always super engaging, but like
no, it's just terse. It's like boom, 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 boom
to the point. Like it's very economical, is how I would is how I would describe the writing, which again is purely some people really get it, and some people, but it is a style. It is a style,
right. It's a very copied style after he became very successful. Like he's very influential on the rest of American literature for the 20th century, right? Because of this. And I think it's very interesting, right? It is extremely dialogue heavy, right? It's just conversations the whole time. And now this is interesting because, right? He has this theory of writing. He kind of talks about later in interviews and stuff about he's kind of this iceberg theory of writing, where he is telling you the surface level stuff, right? But all of these characters, you have to infer the backstory, right? There are a lot of layers here. Now, I think part of this comes from the fact that he is writing based on his personal experience. Again, The Sun Also Rises. This dude is Hemingway, right?
Yeah.
Sure, his name's Jake, whatever. This is Ernest Hemingway, okay? And the fact that he is going through and he's just like, oh yeah, here's this dude, and they talk like they've known each other for a long time. You can kind of think about like, this guy is based on somebody that he knows. Right.
Yeah.
These are things that he has seen. These are things. So he doesn't have to like tell you all about all the backstory, right? You just need to know about this dude for right now, because he's not going to show up again ever in the book. But you infer this deeper history between these two people, right? And I think this is for sort of opposite reasons, something that he has in common with Tolkien, right? Yeah. Because like in Hemingway's mind, like Hemingway knows all the backstory.
Yeah.
And he's only telling you part of it. Whenever you read like Tolkien, he's doing the same thing, right? He knows all the backstory and all the history and all the stuff, but he's just telling you the part that you need right now.
Right. Because you're just being exposed. That's the part of the story where it's going to surface, right? And you're going to move on from that.
Yeah. And so in a weird way, for very different reasons, they at least have that little bit in common, where they're just telling you the story, right? And the reader does have to do a lot of inferring and thinking about things, right? And going from there. And so that is pretty interesting, right? Just, to prove my point that the all of his most popular books seem to be self-insert characters, right? For a long time, he lived in Spain. He was around and reporting on the Spanish Civil War and doing all this stuff. In another one of his famous works, For Whom the Bell Tolls, this is a novel set during the Spanish Civil War about an American volunteer in the... Oh, you see where it's going? Like, you see...
I think we found it.
After the Spanish Civil War, as aforementioned earlier, Hemingway lives in Cuba with the boat that Collin knows well.
Parents.
He lived in Cuba for a long time, right? Where he wrote The Old Man in the Sea, a story about a Cuban fisherman fishing for giant marlin off the coast of Cuba.
Just...
Oh,
yeah, which is what he did. Which is actually, this boat was his marlin fishing boat.
There you go.
Which we need to be very clear about this.
He also wrote To Have and To Have Not down there, which is like also about rogues, and there's fishing boats in that boat too.
Yeah.
So,
and this is the part of his life that gets highly romanticized, right? When he's in like this part. This is what this is. Was this in the
50s, right?
Is it 50s?
Yeah, but by the time he's in Cuba, it's in 1950s, right? After the Spanish Civil War.
After the
Spanish Civil War was after World War II.
Because Key West was before, right? He was in Key...
that was during the war, right? He was kind of living there around that. That's when he was like throwing grenades at the U-boats, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's when he was doing that. Yes. But he's living down there, and then later, right. So that's when it really gets... romanticized is when he's down there, and then not so much when he's living in like Massachusetts and in Kansas City or New York for a little
no
while.
one cares about that part.
Nobody cares. It's whenever he's down there, launching hand grenades and fishing for marlin. They're like, you know what?
Yeah,
maybe that's my.
Yeah, that's what he did there.
Yeah.
It's when he was going to Africa for the hunting trips, like you do in the 50s, right? That's what he was doing. Now to tie all this back to Farewell to Arms. Right, I would like you to a very young Hemingway. Right after leaving the Kansas City Star, he goes to enlist in the military. Now he has an eye condition where he can't really, like, the army's not going to take him. Yeah. So he enlists he goes with the Red Cross to be an ambulance driver. Right. However, when he's 19 on the Austro-Italian front, he gets injured. Right, in an attack, and he has to convalesce in a hospital where he falls in love with a nurse. One of the many random love flings that he has throughout his life. Spoilers, but this is the plot to A Farewell to Arms.
Yes.
Right? So, like, again, we have a very self-insert character to Hemingway, and it feels like to me that these are his four most popular novels. All four of these have self-insert aspects to them. A lot of the other ones are less so. So I feel like maybe one of the reasons that these are so widely accepted as great is because there's a lot more of him in the book, right? And the personal experience that he has in these kind of situations, like, it just shines through, right? Some of his other stuff are like, it's less exciting. Like, he's got personal experience hunting in Africa. There's a book about Africa, but it's kind of like, everyone's like, whatever. I don't know. So I feel like that his ability to self-insert into these books is what kind of brings them up. Right. There's such an element of realism that people can connect to because this happened to Hemingway in some form or another. Right. He has personal experience with this. So his writing style of like, I'm just going to tell you the story, but here's like inferring all the background information. It's allowed to happen more because it's just him. Right. He's just writing about him. Like, sometimes it's very thinly veiled, as in A Farewell to Arms. Right. Yeah. This is very right. And In the Sun Also Rises, the guy reporting in Paris has war injuries that he's like talks about sometimes. Wow.
Yeah.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Right. This is Ernest Hemingway.
It really is a plug and play, which is almost unlike. Okay, so we're going to take the Tolkien thing here.
Yeah.
Like Tolkien is like, it means, what are you talking about? This is no allegory. This place exists, and there's no connection to the actual,
Yeah.
anything else going on.
Except for the Ernest Tolkien. I'm sorry. But like,
it's fine.
yeah, these are. Yeah, I just think that's what makes him so successful in this part is his four most successful novels have big elements of him in there.
And you see that throughout his life as he falls in love again, right? His writing picks back up.
And
right?
again.
And again. And he has this where it's like he has an event, something happens, and he's able to take that and turn it into something.
It's like an inspiration, right?
And it's so interesting because later in life, obviously, he's suffered from mental illness.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Deeply. And later in life, you see him continuing to struggle with that, to pull these pieces together, and he wasn't able to write, and how that just completely broke down, right? Later in life. But how in his early career, it just came so quickly to him as he experienced these things.
Well, as he got older too, a lot of the weighed on him more. He deteriorated.
When his eyesight got worse,
his
too.
eyesight got worse.
Yeah.
I think the drinking probably didn't help.
Didn't help.
I think that was probably a problem too. But like, he had a family history of this.
Yeah.
Because his dad died in the same way that he did.
Yeah.
Right. Which, trigger warning, it wasn't good.
Trigger.
Yeah. Literally. And so I think that played a part in it too, right? He was treated. He went to several hospitals in his later life to seek treatment for depression and anxiety and these type of things. But, in the 50s, what are you going to do, right? Like, I think he got electroshock treatment and some other stuff. So, like, that luckily we don't do that anymore. That's good. We don't need that around.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, unfortunately, he's kind of the, I think that's the myth of Hemingway is so big because of that, right? He's a very bigger than life person, sort of in the late 40s, early 50s, right? He's like the macho-ness personified, right? That's kind of like you were saying, that's the part that gets like really blown up and like romanticized and everything like that, is that like very stereotypical macho manliness of that time period. It was like personified in Hemingway, and I don't know if he'd always relished that being put on him. I think it's one of those things, like, sometimes he did, other times he was like, bro, stop it. Like,
yeah. Well, and you see people who, especially modern writers, they have their go-to, like, who am I going to try and write like, who am I going to be like? And the people who are like, oh, I'm going to be like Hemingway, so I'm going to, go to Florida, I'm going to use a typewriter, I'm going to, have a bunch of cats, and I'm going to write like him or whatever. It's like this. But you see people who do that.
Yeah, I know, but that's kind of missing the point, right? You need to have, like, his writing is like, it's even some of the stuff in Sun Also Rises, right? Like, it's you can tell that there's anguish there.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the conversations are like, they're tough, they're difficult, and they're, it's just a struggling person. And, that is the romanticized version of a author, right? Like the tormented author too. And I think Hemingway gets tossed in there sometimes.
Yeah.
But he is firmly in this, like, he didn't like this phrase notoriously, even though he'd like help popularize it, like, to the thing. But he is definitely firmly ensconced in the lost generation, right? That is him.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't like that term. He rebuffed it, but also all of his writing says, yes, I am. Right. So he publicly rebuffed it, credited to his friend Gertrude Stein. Right. But all these authors, a lot of them were in Paris, like I mentioned earlier, or, even Tolkien, he was in that. He wasn't in Paris. He was sitting at home in England, but he was still of that time, kind of ensconced in that thing. So he's definitely there. Whereas is sort of the antithesis to Tolkien in another way, is whereas Tolkien's outlook is pretty positive a lot of the times. Hemingway's is definitely negative to melancholy a lot, right? Yep. Sometimes there's a positive-ish, right? Like acceptance factor, but it's never like joyous. You know what I mean? Like it's not. So it's kind of the opposite of that. Like you could definitely tell these are two people that dealt with these things in a very different way, right? Of like Tolkien is always very positive. He's like everything kind of has this positive slant. There's a lot of redemption in his writing. It's harder to find in Hemingway, right? It's much more difficult. So he's much more pessimistic. So that will be fun winter reading. There we go.
Break out your vitamin D. Man. Underneath these. But because he wrote in such it also some of the terseness comes across of like, because he wrote in such a lean, a hard, like economical way, it makes that distinction all the more prevalent, right? And more like, so, definitely. Boom, it's here on the page. It's not hidden behind flowery language. There's not like, oh, I've got to read through or parse through 4 pages to get to what's going on. It's like, no, it's literally right here. Yeah. Like there's 2 sentences right there. Don't you know?
True. Yeah. So have you read a lot of Hemingway before, or how familiar are you with?
I have not read a lot of Hemingway actually. I was actually pulling up his book list, his list here, and I completely lost it. Which one? No, I think I had read The Old Man and the Sea, so I'd only read the later one and a little bit of the what is Across the Rivers.
Okay, yeah.
Across Across the River and Into the Trees.
Yes.
So I've only read his 2 later stuff, and I've read none of his other like more short stories, like really early stuff.
I've read some of his short stories. Okay. Like I can't remember which one. I've definitely read Hills with like White Elephants. Oh boy, that's a heavy one. You want to talk about inferring? If you want to know what the word inference means, read that one. Holy cannoli. Yeah. It's really good, but like, woof. Yeah, so I've read a few short stories here and there, and I think I've read, I get The Sun Also Rises. I read that. And I think I know about A Farewell to Arms, kind of, but I don't know if I've ever read it.
Yeah, so, right.
Yeah. If I have, it was like not maybe just like a cursory reading, like just a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. So we chose Farewell to Arms, so that because it was came across a list of things, but also I'm interested to see the very early writings as an early, because it's 1929, right? Is when it came out. Was that when it was published? Or 19?
I just closed the list, but
okay, yeah, I think 1929. So very early on.
Yeah.
His next big, I just pulled my list up here, like. He did Torrents of Spring in 1926. The Sun Also Rises 1926 also, and then Farewell to Arms 1929. His next one was To Have and Have Not 1937. So he takes a big break there.
He wrote a couple things. The Green Hills of Africa was 1935, right? But those are like nobody read Death in the Afternoon.
Well, and these I think is more full novels.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Other things too.
That's true. Those are shorter things, I think.
Yes.
But yeah. So. Yeah, In Our Time was first because it was part of the Poems and Stories thing, and then it got a standalone release. But yeah, Sun Also Rises 1926, Farewell to Arms 1929. Even though in his life those things happened the other way around, I think he wrote Sun Also Rises because that was the most recent thing that happened to him, right? And then I think he went back to his time in Italy,
pulling his experiences here of like what was the most pressing on him, what was he most connected to,
exactly,
and then digging back down. And then I'm looking here. I think I have not read For Whom the Bell Tolls, but I have. I guess I'm familiar-ish with that. So
a little bit.
I'm really mostly disconnected from Hemingway, except for the later work, Old Man and the Sea. But yeah, so. Have you read
a little bit? Again, The Sun Also Rises, and then I have read some short stories. And if I've read A Farewell to Arms, it's been like pieces of it. I don't remember. So, and if I did, it would have been ages ago. So I don't really remember a lot. So
sure,
yeah. And The Old Man and the Sea is one of those things that I always meant to get around to reading, and Never did. Right.
Yeah.
You gotta be in a Hemingway mood.
And it is a mood.
Right. It is a mood because it's kind of heavy, right?
Which is why we're doing this in winter.
In the winter. So I may have to have another book to read on the side to rebound with. I find that when we do these, right, it's a very interesting thing happens to me. Like, because I get in a reading mood. And so I'll read my chapters here. And then I'm like, I want to read more.
Yeah.
So I just read something else also. Like
redirecting the energy.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to read ahead. I don't want to go.
Here.
So I read this and then I'll read like other books also.
Sure.
So it like jumpstarts my reading, which is hilarious, I think. But yeah, so there we go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm interested to see. I think we should set a pretty aggressive reading schedule.
Well, and some of that's why I was going to bring. That's why I brought my copy too, is to look at. A lot of the chapters are quite short.
Yes,
again, right? There's a lot of chapters, but like the whole thing is not really that long. Or
and
you
it's
can
divided
read it
into book.
There's
book
books.
1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 5?
I can't remember if there's. I'll look here in a second.
Yeah,
because I have a copy. I have the collected works here that I've had for a long time sitting on the shelf. And so now I get to read it. So that's good.
Look at that.
Yeah. No one's on that anyway. So yeah, we'll look at that after when we get off.
Yeah,
sure.
We'll
talk about it. But yeah, I think a lot of the chapters are quite short, and you do read them quite fast because there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of stuff, and so you can kind of like blitz through some of it. So yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so this will be fun. I'm excited. We will move forward with that next time and do that.
All right.
So let me see here. Hold on. I had to pull something up quick.
I was like, I just panicked.
I have to find mine.
Okay, that's all right. I just panicked, listeners. We were getting ready to end the show, and I was like, whose week was it to write a poem? I don't remember.
I have mine in a note somewhere. Just give me a second.
That's what I do. Mine is in a notes app. I have a folder for them, but then I can't remember. Sometimes I write them in like the middle of the week, and then like I don't remember that I've done it. So it's like, oh, wait, do I have one? I don't remember. Okay. So it's right. The panic of did you write a poem or not?
Yes, and then if you did, where is it?
Yeah,
that's actually what's more terrifying.
That is also problematic, right?
I need to find it, and I realize I have nothing in where I normally do because I usually pull everything up, and I'm not on my computer, except I am kind of.
But it's the mobile one, so that's right.
Well, and it's not anything. Okay, I have mine here. I found it. Note. We're ready. Okay. Cold train in the night. Ghostly whispers, darkened plight. Bells ring, chilling fright.
Oh, wow. There we go.
Not a bummer, but
hey,
I did watch a terrifying Christmas movie last week. It impacted me deeply.
That's all right. It's okay. Right? Spoilers, listeners. The show may be a bummer for a while. I'm going to read some Hemingway. So,
but
we'll see what happens.
Real quick, I'll counteract that. We also did finally we did watch our annual watching of A Muppet Christmas Carol. And I was reminded of the quote as to why Michael Caine and Tim Curry do so well in the Muppets movies. Have you heard this?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Okay, Michael Caine believes the Muppets are real people.
Yes.
Tim Curry believes he is a Muppet.
Yes.
I love that so much.
Yes.
So that we'll end on that note.
All right, there we go.
Instead of scary whispers playing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.